Hi, this is Bruce Rawles, and I'm speaking again with Susan Dugan. And today we thought we'd talk about a section in A Course in Miracles in Chapter 9, the last section of that chapter, of the acceptance of the atonement, which is grandeur versus grandiosity. And as Susan and I were just discussing before we started the recording, this topic covers just about everything that the Course relates to, because it is, after all, a very holographic Course. And if we can let go of our investment in our egoic strategy in one area of our life, it affects every other. I know Susan has plenty to share as well, and we thought we'd make a couple of announcements first before we get going. So do you want to start in, Susan?
Sure. Well, yeah, a lot of times I announce things at the end, and I wanted to make sure people may not want to listen to all of this. So the foundation for A Course in Miracles is, the major teaching organization that, of the original course, and so I'm very they're still carrying on Ken Wapnick's work and doing amazing teaching, and that is so, just seems to keep going and evolving and being, helpful as we evolve on our journey with the Course. And so I couldn't recommend it. I'm always recommending it. And now you can do it in streamed version. You can watch it online. You have to sign up in advance to do that. And it's really what they charge for these classes is really nothing compared to the content of what they're offering. Mm-hmm. So it's just, it is a foundation. And so it's just going to the work of the foundation, the small costs that they charge. But the next one that's coming up is The Past is Over, It Can Touch Me Not. And it is a 2-day academy and is February 10th. I'm sorry. It will be streamed, and it is, you have to sign up. So it starts the following weekend, I believe, but you have to sign up by February 3rd if you decide you want to do that. And it's a 2-day, I think it's a Sunday and Monday. I might be wrong on that. But if you're interested, please go to the foundation, facim.org, their website, and you can find information on the Temecula schedule page there for programs, I think. And then the other thing is, if you go to the bookstore there are 2 newly released CD sets of workshops of Ken Wapnick's that sound extraordinary. I just ordered them. So if you go there and click on new releases to the bookstore tab and then click on new releases, you can find out about those. So
all good, all recommended.
Yeah, I recommend it.
I always tell people I'm in the Will Rogers school of anything Ken Wapnick has done, or now that, with his passing, the Foundation for A Course in Miracles, because they're consistent, like you say, they're consistently continuing on, without skipping a beat. Not one note in heaven song was missed, and the same is true of the foundation.
For sure, yeah.
They really are just very much holding true to that vision and continuing in a consistent quality and quantity as well of excellent work, and all of it's recommended. And everything on the website and everything that they're doing.
Questions and answers, the online study aids. There's so much rich material there. A lot of it's free.
Yes.
Just go there. You'll be amazed.
It is. It's astonishing how much is there with the Lighthouse, the FAQs, all the just voluminous amounts of stuff that's just there on the site as well as available for purchase. I have also a quick announcement. I'm very enthused to announce that there's going to be a conference in Colorado in June, the 16th through the 19th in Estes Park. This is actually going to be the 5th annual Weekend of Freedom Retreat conference. And I'll be one of the presenters there, but the names people are probably more familiar with are Gary Renard and Cindy Laura Renard, and David Hoffmeister and Fishman, and Lori Coburn, Craig Villarubia, Maria Felipe, and probably a lot of others, but those are the ones that I know of right now. And just getting the website up, but it's running, and if you're interested, you can find out more about that at weekendoffreedomretreat.org. If you go to the .com, you'll go to the one from last year, so that won't help you too much. But the .org is the new one, and we'll shift that over later. But anyway, it should be a lot of fun. I'm very much looking forward to it. I have no idea what it's going to involve, other than just the intention to share. I'm sure there'll be some presentations that will be, plenary types of things where everyone will be able to listen and share, as well as a lot of spontaneous opportunities just for sharing with like-minded course students. And what a great place. It's going to be at the YMCA in Estes Park, and that's such a beautiful area, right at the back door of Rocky Mountain National Park, and it's just a gorgeous area. And so if anyone is in the Estes Park or the Colorado area in general in June, and or if you know anybody who is or would like to be, this I think is going to be a wonderful event, and so I'm just letting people know about that.
Congratulations on that, and I would echo. I mean, it's great teachers and the setting, the YMCA of the Rockies, and our backyard of the Rocky Mountains here is absolutely stunning, and it should be. Hopefully, the snow will be out of the way by then. And,
June, right?
It's June. You never know.
Mid-June, so we'll should be.
We're down low enough. It should be, and. Yeah. Where the YMCA of the Rockies is, if you climbed up a little bit, you might get some snow. Yeah. But yeah, it's just a beautiful, stunningly beautiful area, and what a great setting for a great conference. So
yes. So anyway, we'll mention all these things at the end again. But let's jump into the substance, the content of our beloved course here. And you suggested the grandeur versus grandiosity, and there's a lot to that section. As you were pointing out, it really, since it's a holographic course, it ties into everything else that the course is about. So would you like to read some of it, or
Well, let's discuss it a little bit first. Okay. So grandeur versus grandiosity is the final chapter of chapter 9 in the text of A Course in Miracles, and we were discussing before we started recording that it really encapsulates the whole course. It really, grandeur is our true nature, is our oneness joined as one, our union with God. That remains uninterrupted, while we dream otherwise. And so the very, the tiny mad idea that the Course talks about, that we could challenge that grandeur, that we could create a different reality, fragment that oneness and exist as personal selves in a personal world. That that outpicturing of just the belief in that idea that we seem to be living and call our lives is really a thought of grandiosity, and it's a thought of that I can do better than God, and it's a thought of competition with God. And so this whole chapter, and really the whole course, is about learning and bringing that to our awareness. And beginning to see that really is that belief, that dream, the failure to take that tiny mad idea seriously is the cause of all suffering. And to really begin to integrate that into our experience, and by observing what we're doing with a new teacher, with Jesus, Holy Spirit, with the part of our mind that didn't take it seriously, observing our allegiance to the part of our mind that we call the ego that did take it seriously, and then discovering through that process that we are the decision-making mind. We're not the ego, and that it's really not in our best interest to forge ahead with all of this, to align ourselves with the thought of grandiosity. But this particular section, the Course is always very practical and meets us in the condition we think we're in. And so we can relate this very specifically to our lives, in the sense that we're always, now that we have identified with that thought of separation, and defended ourselves against the belief that we would be punished for living that thought, for actually experiencing that thought, and then forgotten, we made up of this refuge of a seeming world to hang out in. Now, the way that gets expressed is in this constant sense of competition with everyone and everything that we all feel. And usually, and it starts from the moment that we seemingly enter the world as, these innocent little babies. We're already in competition with everyone and everything. And, in our experience, in our families, we're in competition. We're literally in competition for survival, for getting our physical needs met, and we all know how needy our bodies are. We need constant, we need oxygen and food, and constant. As helpless infants, we need really all of our needs met. We need to be taken care of. We need shelter. We need to be carried. We can't even walk. We can't even talk. We can't communicate. And so we're really in competition for all other little beings, and we're in competition in our families immediately with our parents, in the sense that, usually we very often play off against our moms and dads, and, we're in competition for our father's love. Our mother is in competition with our father's love, and our father is in competition for our mother's love. And then we bring in the siblings and we're in competition, and our playmates, right? And we're in competition with them, and we're in the sandbox, and it's like not going well, and, all hell breaks loose. And I mean, I remember as a kid, just, we had a gang of kids in our neighborhood that hung out together, and it was just a bloodbath almost every day. We'd start out well, we go out into the woods, and of course, those are the days where that people, I don't know, the parents, like, either they were really checked out or whatever, but we were just allowed to roam around, but the girls would turn against the boys, the older kids would turn against the little kids would turn, and then the siblings would defend their other siblings, and pretty soon everybody was like banished to their houses, and
and that's on a good day, right?
That was on a good day. So we're always doing this, and as we grow up, we're doing it. It's constant, and usually it's a very primal urge in us, because it was it comes from this very, very archaic sort of thought, and this very primitive thought that we could do something like this. It's not a lofty thought. It's a very primitive thought. It's a thought that we could diminish ourselves. And so it's really our littleness, this section talks about it as, but it's expressed very often as this grandiosity. And in our adult lives, it's very often experienced as a sense of everyone being in competition with us, that we can't ever catch a break, and we can't ever, I can't work hard enough. I can't, whatever I do, there's somebody that's faster and better, and, or trying to usurp me, or, we all know what that feels like. I mean, it's pretty much a very common universal human experience. And of course, the course is challenging us to challenge that belief, to, in our experience, begin to question what's really going on, and to at least raise to doubt the cause of that experience, and to question that it's really not about another person trying to, they may be informed trying to actually usurp me, but my peace, the peace of mind, what I really am, has nothing to do with that. And that is what I am, is very, very stable, and very, very lofty, and very, very loving. It doesn't divide. It doesn't see favorites. It doesn't see differences. It sees no, and on the level of that we think we are, it's not asking, the Course is not asking us not to literally see differences, but to give them, to not give them meaning, to not make them,
Exactly.
make us use them to choose victims, and to side with victims over victimizers, whether I feel like I'm the victim or in a situation, or I feel like someone else is. We're always siding with the victims over the victimizers. And the truth is, we're all victims of the ego thought system. Everybody is a victim of that belief in grandiosity. And we have only to look around us, just for like a nanosecond in the world today, in the larger collective world, and see the incredible competition that's going on, and the incredible grandiosity. I mean, we're witnessing it all over the world, and we're witnessing it here in the United States as another presidential election comes up in almost a cartoonish fashion. And so, but when we witness that and we find ourselves reacting, The Course is about, I do this too. I mean, recognizing that this is all coming from that original thought, that that we challenged God, and now our only, God was affected by it. It made a difference. And now are the best we can, we now deserve punishment. We're unworthy, and the best we can do to compensate is to constantly compete to try to get our needs met. And that means me or them. And we, as we practice this course and begin to raise this, bring this to our awareness and learn to look at it, learn that we have a choice of which teacher to look at this with, and ask for that non-judgmental presence in our mind to be beside us and look, so that we, aren't quite as horrified by what we're doing. And we learn not to then victimize ourselves over it. Through that process and that willingness to see that it's all the same, and forgive ourselves, which, and forgive everyone in that process, then, that is what is going to heal our mind and bring us back very, very gradually, because we're too afraid to go all at once, but to the dawning of awareness of our grandeur, the return home. So that was a long-winded introduction to this, but
well, very good, and you covered a lot there. And one of the of many key ideas that you shared just now was I think the meaning that we ascribe to our projections, and the dream that we made up, that we take as literal fact, even though it's actually a metaphor in our mind, is really what the Course, I think, wants us to address and to look at, and to see how, not that we need to change our behavior or what we do in the world, whether it's, kids in gangs getting coffee. I'm thinking of Jerry Seinfeld, right? but whatever we happen to be doing, it doesn't mean we change the form, but we change the content of our mind, and see that the identity can shift from this one of grandiosity, of the me versus them, the we they paradigm, and the meaning that we've ascribed to the littleness of things is really a cover or a mask for the nothingness. But like you say, we need the gradual approach. We need the gentle, hold our hand, please, Holy Spirit, Jesus, of course, and guide us to that awareness that reminds us that we really can look at everything in our life and use that as our classroom for getting back to the mind, getting back to that awareness, as you pointed out, that really can go from the grandiosity of the ego, which is, it pretends to be something, and it sure seems like something, because I think, oh, I'm this person with this body and this story and this whole yada yada going on. Decades worth of it now. It's like this got to be something, right? And yet, what the Course reminds us is that the grandeur is really, and it expresses it fairly early on in the text. I think that a favorite phrase that I'm going to paraphrase, that the Holy Spirit has saved every loving thought and every kindness, and we're blessed by that as one, not as separate individuals, but it's really the shared interest that is that practical, doable, realizable path out of our nightmarish dream of competition and separate interests. And so it's really, again, the meaning that shifts, not and the content in the mind from the behavior. We shift the emphasis from the behavior and trying to ascribe meaning to our dream characters and figures, back to the understanding that there is just one self, but the way we get to that self is by the shared interest and being kind, and remembering that we can afford to look at the things that we're irritated by and annoyed with, and whether it's a political figure on TV or somebody doing something in traffic that we don't like, or something that we need to do every year around April 15th, or that we haven't started yet, or maybe it's just it could be any number of things. There's thousands of things in this dream that we've made up that we've intentionally placed as obstacles or barriers to that gentle, kind, very soothing awareness that is the grandeur that this section speaks of.
Right, right. And it's always about, really, again, paying attention to how I'm feeling, what I'm thinking, what I'm feeling, and not, it's never about really anybody else's ego. When I see something that I don't like on the news, and I find myself condemning someone, or, deep in making fun of someone, or however that presents, over their grandiosity. Let's just, stick with the grandiosity idea, or the competition idea, and the swagger. Then that is my mind in need of healing, because that's saying, that I don't have an ego, but they do. And that's not true. My swagger is just as, it may not be quite as flamboyant, and I certainly don't have the audience for it, but it's the same, and it comes from the same place. And I think it's very instructive right now to watch the political, to observe that, and work with your own ego coming up on it, because it will, and to really, and to witness the anger that everyone seems to be feeling and is getting reported on all over the place, and you hear from people. And so, and to recognize that, again, that's an opportunity for us to see our sameness, which is what this course is about. It's the ego is always making differences very, very serious and important and real, and
big deals.
Right. And there's always a lot of anger about it. And the course isn't saying that we don't get angry. We all get angry. If you're here in a body, you're going to get angry. I mean, you didn't come here as a happy thought, as a happy camper. So that's inevitable. What we're learning, though, is that, what the course says, that have no, ego thoughts that you would keep. And so what you're learning is, let's look at this. Where is this really coming from? And in every example and manifestation of it, it's always coming from the same thought, and from the course's perspective. And the thought is always, that I destroyed love, and I separated from God, and the guilt over that, and the belief that, the selfish wish to continue in that direction and experience it, but try to get away with it, by creating a world to hide out in, and then finding other bodies to blame it on. That's the cause of my suffering. That's the only cause of my suffering. And it's not, in truth, it's not really happening. We can't wrap our heads, our brains, around the fact that it's not really or that, that the part that it's not real, that this is all an illusion. That's not our experience. Right. And that would be level confusion. That would be denying, our experience. And Jesus doesn't want us to do that. He's like, don't do that. But, that would be a bad thing.
Don't go there.
It's a particularly, unworthy form of denial. So just knock that off. We both know you don't know that. So let's be honest here. But what you can do is you can learn to pay very, very close attention to your reactions. And every time you have those reactions, this is what forgiveness is all about. You can question them. You can say, maybe I'm wrong about this. Maybe something else is going on. I want to learn a different way, because this is the way I feel right now. The anger that I'm feeling, the defensiveness, the self-righteousness, it doesn't feel good. And it doesn't relieve, the fear and the guilt that, it always leaves me with more fear and guilt after the ego attack passes. So maybe I can learn a different way. I'm learning a different way of relating to people in this world and relating to myself. And through that different way, the truth is that nothing outside me has the power to take my peace away. And nothing on the news, nothing in any political party, nothing in any, no act of terrorism, no email that I don't like the tone of, nothing that my spouse says to me, nothing, no screw up of my kids, nothing that my boss denies me or dings me for. All of that's a lie. And you know, I don't believe that, but I can learn to see that, and I can learn to see that that actually peace lies there in that learning. You know, I can discover that as an experience if I'm willing to just admit over and over again, my way isn't working. This way lies madness, you know. And if once we really start paying attention to our reactions, paying attention, becoming very sensitive to our feelings, we just automatically begin to see that, you know, the mechanical steps of forgiveness become less mechanical as we practice, because we begin to see the contrast of, you know, of the shift that we make when we're willing to look with Jesus, you know, that doesn't happen instantly usually, but does happen at some point, to seeing our sameness with an M, in which we also see our sameness with an N, but we also see in that everybody here has the same need to go home. Everybody's suffering. And, you know, only compassion can spring from that. Once we really experience that, you know, we're compassionate toward the victim and the victimizer. Where, you know, we see that we no longer feel judgment. It just drops away because we see, again, you know, it's just that scared child. I mean, the line in this that says in paragraph 2, let's see, grandiosity is always a cover for despair. It is without hope because it is not real. It is an attempt to counteract your littleness based on the belief that the littleness is real. Without this belief, grandiosity is meaningless, and you could not possibly want it, right? The essence of grandiosity is competitiveness because it always involves attack. It always echoes that attack we believe we made on God, you know, and again, tries to prove the ego's agenda of I really exist, but it's not my fault. It's theirs. They're attacking me. That's why I'm like this, you know?
Right. It's the original authority problem that the Course refers to.
Yeah. Exactly. That I could, you know, that I really could challenge God.
And do better.
Yeah, and do better and make a better self, make a better me, you know? And
hasn't been working too well, though.
Well, and it's impossible. It's ludicrous. It's
right.
a ludicrous
right.
idea.
Right.
It is a delusional, there you go, attempt to outdo, but not to undo. So, you know, to outdo others, but to leave that, not to undo the thought of separation, not to undo the guilt that holds that thought together. We're deliberately deciding to keep that thought intact, you know, and this is how we do it. We keep ourselves so focused, fighting our battles out there, competing with each other for innocence. And, you know, and it doesn't work. It doesn't undo anything. The guilt is still there. It's a maladaptive solution to a non-existent problem, you know, as Ken loved to say, and said we should continue to quote him on. He liked that quote of his own.
I like it too. I think it's brilliant. It really says everything that, you know, seems to have happened within a delusional mind, and also provides the, you know, a humorous hint of how to get out of it.
Right. And I mean, grandiosity is always a cover for despair. Right. You know, it's the cause of our suffering. We are despairing. You know, I always go back to lesson 182, but it's that frightened child that feels so lost and alien here and believes it can't find a way home. And so is always trying to put on a superhero costume, you know, or anti-hero costume, whatever. It doesn't matter.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
It doesn't matter. I mean, I actually have been really working with, I wrote an essay about this in my last book, but I had a really strong experience, again, of the ego as that little, you know, going through my own stuff the last week or two, of the ego as that frightened little boy in a superhero or anti-hero costume, running around, you know, making with all kinds of sound effects and a paper towel holder, and that he thinks is a semi-automatic, and really like just going at it. And the reason that I think that that's a helpful image is because there's no need to attack this thought. I mean, it's not that gives it power it doesn't have. It's just a tiny mad idea. It's a tiny little frightened boy that is so so despairing and so afraid he's lost his father's love, and he'll never find his way home, that he's going crazy, and we're all going crazy. Look at what a crazy world we have. Look at how crazy our relationships can get, and how dysfunctional they can end up when they seem to start as loving. They seem to start as some kind of great romance.
Mm-hmm.
And so everybody is fighting that same hard battle, and the Course is just really but the Course is saying, if Jesus as our teacher is saying, if you will take my hand and you will just be willing to learn and use your life as a classroom and look with me, look with me gently. Forgiveness is still and quietly does nothing. It merely looks and waits and judges not. If you'll be willing, just that little willingness to do that with me, it's going to change everything.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And you'll learn, but I know you're frightened. You don't have to learn it all at once. I'm willing. I'm right here. I'm here for everyone. I can be everywhere at once, and I'm here right beside you, as close as your next breath, to look at all of these monsters that you're making up in competition with you.
Right.
Yeah,
I think looking at that without condemnation, without judgment, I think leads us to what you said. I like how you tied together the word same and sane, because it does seem that when we just can step back from the identification with the ego drivel that's a 24/7 director's cut insanity, we then can see that we're all in the same boat, and that sameness really does lead to the saneness. and maybe it's no accident those words are so similar, because it really is such a great route, and ultimately I think it can take many forms, but it's ultimately the mechanism that we all use in different ways to seemingly different ways to find that sameness is that's our ticket home. That sameness then leads to the oneness, which we can't really understand here. So like you say, the Course meets us where we think we're at. So by having the shared interest, by seeing the sameness, by seeing that we're all in the same boat. A few minutes ago when you were talking, I was thinking of the metaphor of the movie The Wizard of Oz, and how Dorothy, who is dreaming of being away from home, has to enlist these amazing strange characters, a Tin Woodsman, a Scarecrow, a lion, and that they are all looking for something. They don't know exactly what, but they think they need X, but it's really Y. And when they get to the wizard, the first thing they have to do is look past all the fearfulness. The grandeur that's really there is really hiding behind the grandiosity that seems bigger, but it's really smaller. And so it's this epic, seemingly epic odyssey to where we never left. And I couldn't agree more about lesson 182. That child that just forever quietly but implores us to just listen and stop and hear the sameness that we all have, and the mournful cry that really is behind all of our attempts to try to identify with the dream we made. But we've got it all backwards. It's all upside down and inside out and out of proportion. And I think the Grandeur, Grandiosity thing, when we first started talking in this particular recording, I was thinking of a kid's joke that I think actually has some good metaphors, and that is it's the riddle of how do you catch an elephant if all you have is a pair of binoculars, a tweezer, and a jar. And the way you do that is you take the binoculars, turn them backwards, and then look at the elephant backwards, and then from that perspective, the elephant's really tiny. You take the tweezers and you put them in the jar, and then close the lid, and then you've got the elephant in the jar, right? So, but that's kind of, I think, how the Course is really geared, is basically giving us an opportunity to see the sameness that then inverts our perspective and turns it inside out and upside down, and undoes the bass backwardness of ego's insanity, and gives us an opportunity to see how little ego's grandiosity really is. Then we're not, when Toto pulls back the curtain, it's like, well, this is no big deal. This is just a frightened little guy who got caught in a dream just like the rest of us, but we can all work together to go home and see that there is no place like home, because there's no place. And we had that, and the good witch says, you had the power all along, so what's the big deal here? But we seem to need to go through all these episodes of unlearning, so that we're not frightened all at once. When we pull back the drape, we actually get to do it in stages. We get to undo it by seeing the sameness, and then working backwards to where we never left.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's a good, the Wizard of Oz is a great metaphor for the ego thought system.
Oh yeah.
What we're doing, and it always is that, just that willingness to really look at my stuff as it comes up, and not to judge it, not to beat ourselves up about it, but just to look, this is how afraid of love I am. Right. Because it's all, we're terrified of love now because of what we think we did to it. And we've got to, you can't really heal your mind through this course if you're not doing that. Getting the metaphysics is very important to understand intellectually, but if we're not really using the opportunities in our life, every opportunity, every reaction, and we skip, we certainly don't have to beat ourselves up that we are unwilling to do this at times, but what we're invited to do is to use every opportunity. Right. Not because, delay is sinful, but because suffering is optional, it's unnecessary. Mm-hmm. And so, at some point, I think we have a shift with this course too. I think I know I had it at some point, a shift with this course where it's like, I really need to start doing this, like all the time. It's not, I can't just kind of do it, in this one relationship that seems so hard, or just do it with the small things, or, we really are asked to generalize this to everything. I think that happens naturally because the impulse to do that happens naturally because you begin to experience, we don't experience grandeur, but we begin to experience glimpses of peace, the holy instance, the peace not of this world, outside time, where these battles that seem so important suddenly seem meaningless, and where we really feel the compassion for everyone involved. There's no condemnation left in that, and that is the contrast between that, which we know is the direction of everything we've ever wanted, versus the pain that becomes more and more apparent to us of choosing to keep doing what we're doing. Becomes that contrast is what Jesus is trying to get us to see, because that's his great motivating tool. Look what you're doing to yourself. How is it working out for you? How are you feeling? And you can suffer if you want. I have infinite patience, but it's really not necessary to keep doing this. And so, despite that, we have this enormous resistance, and we often find ourselves caught between a rock and a hard place where we're just we know the course's answer, but we're right now we don't want it. We're stuck. And
don't confuse me with the facts, right?
Right, yeah. Or we just don't feel, we are really beating ourselves up usually, and we don't know how to get out of it. And so in those cases, I think that what helps me is to just remember again that, Jesus didn't go anywhere. I just vacated the decision-making mind. I'm pretending that I'm an ego. I'm pretending that I'm that little boy instead of realizing that I'm the adult in the room, and that can comfort him because he's scared. That's all.
Right.
And so it's the frightened, ego that I'm aligning within me that is, and my refusal to own that I'm a decision maker, that's not a sin. And Jesus is still there. The right mind doesn't go anywhere. And so, and in truth, the decision making mind doesn't go anywhere either. I'm just, I'm pretending that I don't have a decision making mind. And that's okay, because it's just coming from fear, and it will pass. And the more you do this, the more it does pass. And over time, I was listening to a great CD set of Ken's on our earliest memory. Are you familiar with that at all?
I've heard that one.
It's really good, and it's a new one that, it's not new, but it's new to me. But anyway, there's a point in this where somebody's talking about how that she was beginning to think about the mind, the decision-making mind, as being her home, and going and the right mind being, and decision-making mind being more of the home, the mind itself being the home. Mm-hmm. And Ken said something like, yes, and he said, at first you go there, maybe you'll go like every other weekend, and for a few hours, and he said, and then maybe you'll stay overnight. He said, and eventually, like maybe you'll I don't know, I'm paraphrasing, but you'll leave some clothes there, you'll get a drawer in the house, and then maybe you'll leave a couple quarts of ice cream in the freezer. That you do this gradually, and we get more and more comfortable, which means less frightened, because that undoing of the guilt is going on for us through this practice, and so we're more comfortable in being there. We're not, the resistance kind of slowly begins to be. It's bad. It's still really bad when we're in it, but there's not this, the solid block of granite has openings in it, and it begins to weaken. And so, even when we're in that resistance, there's I think some kind of awareness that this too will pass. It's part of the journey, and it's not, and Jesus is still there. You can't, you might want him to get the hell out, but he's not going to go.
Yeah, I think you remind me of I think a principle that really is helpful is that it does take practice, and every time we do practice that mindfulness to where we say, oh yeah, following ego's agenda of grandiosity has got me nowhere. In fact, it's made me particularly miserable. And if I'm honest with myself and look at that, then I actually have moments of respite that come as a very gentle release from trying to follow the tyrannical dictates of ego's, maladaptive solution to the non-existent problem. And when we do that, it's cumulative. And like you say, maybe it's just a toothbrush the first weekend, but if it's just one little thing that says, oh yeah, I stopped trying to make that agenda of me first work. I stopped trying to make my separate interest more important than the interest that we all share in going home together. And for that moment, however long that was, where I just let go of that obsession, I was peaceful. And those moments of peace shine in stark contrast. The grandeur of those moments of peace shine in stark contrast to the dismal, gloomy, and morose, awful, yucky feelings of the grandiosity of ego's. Well, we're gonna make this work. Let's just thrash around in the dark and keep trying to make it work, but it never does. Yeah. But eventually, we wise up to that, and we just say, hey, the moments where I did let go of that, I was happy and peaceful. And that's starting to build, and now it's easier to click into that, and the gaps between those moments when I click into it are shorter, and I'm doing it more frequently. And the feeling of I don't really think we really have a sense of the grandeur that really is behind these efforts, but intuitively I think we know that what we really all are, the grandeur of the self that we really are, that is so phenomenally profound that we don't know, but there's a feeling behind it that says, yeah, this is incredibly wonderful. Yeah. We're basically clueless at this point as to what that grandeur is, but we're drawn to it. I mean, 30 some odd years ago when I picked up this book. I was like, I know there's something here, man. I was, brand new at the theory, but now having spent a few decades, I like you say, I can see that the theory is crucial and it's important. We have to understand the metaphysics, as Ken says. We can't get too far from it. But once we get that, at some point, there's this pivotal point. It's not necessarily a temporal thing, but a place where we start to recognize the only way out of this is to practice this and to see the sameness that leads to that grandeur, and to see the quality of compassion and kindness that truly makes us happy and truly brings us that peace, and then we can start stitching those together, and then it's not just a toothbrush. Now we're starting to, suitcases full of stuff into that retreat from insanity that we're
well, and
our real home base. Yeah,
absolutely. But it's still always that we have to have a healthy respect for our allegiance to the ego, because
absolutely,
our fear. And this section, there's probably a line that I should talk about with the ego's suspiciousness and viciousness that is in here. But in the previous section too, the two evaluations, talks about the ego's range as is suspiciousness to viciousness. That is its range, and that it becomes particularly suspicious or vicious when you've chosen the Holy Spirit. So Jesus as your teacher. And so when we have those times when we truly are, we put our interests out of the way, and we're, because just naturally, because we've chosen Jesus, or we've changed our mind about something, and we've seen that our interests are the same as, that it's just the same need to go home that I share with this other person, and we've acted lovingly. As a result, the ego will very often, will experience something as a random incoming attack that seems terrifying, and that's because, and again, we thought, we're out of touch with having chosen it because of the rapidity with which we choose, which Lesson 136, our sickness is a defense against the truth, talks about. But we have chosen it. We went running right back to our friend the ego again. And, because this is, again, we're not in touch with how much this threatens our fear of losing me, and how invested we still are in the only safety that we think we have, which is our physical and psychological body, our personal self, our personal identity. And so, we're not there. We've come a long way. And in the sense that we know the answer and we know it works and we're willing to be a student, but we're still in school, and we could be in school for a long time, because that resistance, that fear, that guilt is so much deeper than we're in touch with, and so that's where we have to have that gentleness and patience with ourselves, and recognize that although, we're what you were saying is so true, grandeur calls to us. That it's and this section talks about how grandeur is, if we could really allow ourselves for a moment to really feel that, the ego would disappear. But we're way too fearful of doing that all at once. And so it's good when we read the sections in this that talk, or in all of the course that talk about level 1, that talk about our true nature, and we long for, and we connect with, but to also be aware of and onto the fear that may come up, may arise, maybe not simultaneously, probably not, but afterwards, because anything opposing the truth is, we're asking it through this process to come to the light, so it can be looked at and seen clearly as nothing. But it first seems like something, and it seems like a really, the guilt seems very real again in our experience. Right. And so, that's why Jesus spends so much time talking about the ego dynamics in this course. And, that's what turns a lot of people off about the course, is they don't, because it's not lofty spiritual teaching in that sense,
I have to give up my misery. I can't go there.
Well, or we want to skip the entire process and go to the grandeur, but all that does is drive the guilt more deeply into the into, you know, away from our awareness, which means it will get projected.
Right.
Well, you know, and we won't be aware of it again. And so, you know, we'll think it's due again to external circumstances, or we'll think we're somehow spiritually special, that we could skip those steps and now we're evolved, and you know, but the guilt is still there. Mm-hmm. And so, you know, that's kind of a detour for sure. So you know, we don't want to do that. We want to be really present with the process of it, as you know. And yeah, so I was gonna, can I read another?
Oh, please do, please do.
Let's see.
While you're looking for that, I was just going to make a quick comment in terms of what you just said, that it's important to remember, and it's an excellent point, that if we're not anticipating the backlash from the ego, we can get blindsided and to just kind of expect it, but not make a big deal. If we can remember to not make a big deal when that inevitable backlash does, you know, because the ego isn't going to give up without a fight. It says, wait a minute, I've invested this, you know, a whole universe, you know, that whole outer shield of oblivion is designed just to keep us mindless, but because we made it, because of that authority problem, we're not going to let go of that without, you know, at least you know, a few conversations within our decision-making mind about it.
Right. So we do make a big deal out of it, you know. I mean, I mean, that's the ego getting, you know, joining the journey. We make a big deal out of it. We're very upset. We believe that we're doing something wrong. We beat ourselves up. We're never going to learn this course, and you know, but that's the ego joining the journey, because the ego really wants us not to learn this course, you know, and wants us to give it up, and wants to scare us so badly that, you know, that we think we're actually going to have some kind of catastrophic, you know, circumstance arise in our dream, you know, that's the cost of going home. Somehow, you know, the ego is always peddling those sorts of thoughts. And you know, I mean, which is ludicrous again, because it's just a dream, and it's my dream, and it's already in the dream, and you know, but and it means nothing ultimately. But you know, we get caught, we're hooked in we're not aware of our allegiance again to the ego, and our defense, our deep fear of going home, of, you know, giving up this personal identity, and are still believing the ego story that to give up separate interests is to make us go poof. You know, that we're just going to vanish, or we're going to die. We're literally going to die. But it's the ego that's slowly dying through this process, you know. And again, the ego's just, you know, the ego doesn't really die. It's just going to, our split mind is going to heal, and we're going to see that there is no bad dream. There is no bad thought. There is no, you know, grandiosity that actually challenged grandeur.
Right. Well, it's kind of like those rhetorical questions that the Course asks of, you know, where does the darkness go when you turn on the light? What happens to the dream figures when the dreamer wakes up? Well, if you phrase it properly, the question answers itself, and there's no question. But from within the dream, when we ask those questions, it's basically really a statement that is reinforcing that thought system, because that's its motivation. It wants to reinforce the idea that suffering and victimization and being either, like you say earlier on, victimizer or a victim is our identity. Because without that, the whole basis, the whole foundation is seen as ludicrous, and the grandiosity is like, well, why would I go there? So that's why the mind is such a scary place to the ego, and that's the inner shield of oblivion that the ego defends very heartily once it's been rousted. And it's like, unlike the Wizard of Oz, it puts up a much bigger fight. but we're up to it. I mean, we're not confronted with anything that we can't handle when we give ourselves the opportunity to metaphorically take the hand of our inner kindness teacher, the Jesus of the Course, and just look at that insanity together and see that it is nothing. That grandiosity is just a big zero, nothing. It's a dream. It's a darkness that is dispelled by the light, and then the darkness is just a nothing. But
you know, that awareness dawns on us over time.
Of course, absolutely.
but Ken always used to say, don't worry, you're not going to go poof, you know.
Right. Right.
I mean, you're going to be more tolerant. You're going to, you know, the guilt is slowly dissolving through this process, and you know, eventually, you know, you can be in the real world when all the guilt is gone, and then you see, you truly see no difference between victims and victimizers. Your response to everything that happens, and it has, you know, and it doesn't mean that you know, inform bad things won't happen, but when you won't be identified with the body, you won't be identified with a personal self, you won't take anything personally, and you'll respond always with compassion and love. You know, it won't be, you'll see things the way Jesus does. And you know, so you know, it's at the very, very end that all of this really disappears, and at that point it means nothing. So there's no, it's a, you know, you don't have to worry about that.
Right.
And we're not in any danger of that happening, you know. Most of us, like,
probably not for the next few weeks anyway.
All those babies and children, you know, we're on a journey. We're moving in that direction. We're in school. But I wanted to read the just a couple in that same paragraph that I was reading, which I think was the paragraph 2. If I had gone on there, it says, we said before that the ego vacillates between suspiciousness and viciousness. It remains suspicious as long as you despair of yourself, which is, you identify with your grandiosity, your littleness, right? It shifts to viciousness when you decide not to tolerate self-abasement and seek relief, when you choose the Holy Spirit. Then it offers you the illusion of attack as a solution. And, you know, so it will be, again, you know, there'll be something that seems to draw us back in, and we'll feel, you know, we'll feel that us or them of the ego thought system again, you know. The problem is all of a sudden we're back, the problem's in the dream, you know, and it's attacking me. And so, but it's still not, it's not the truth. So he's telling, you know, the dynamics of the ego, so that when this happens, you don't need to be surprised, and we don't really need to anticipate it, but we you know, Ken would say to not make it a big deal, like you were saying, and I think I heard Rosemary say to learn to be nonchalant about it. You know, it's just, it's there I go again. We do what we do, and you know, it's okay. It's not a sin. It's just, you know, so we're learning that it really doesn't have the power. But I think we, you know, when we're beating ourselves up and in that frightened state, it doesn't help to try to talk ourselves out of it. It helps to be compassionate with that child again.
Absolutely.
You know? And in whatever image works for you, but, you know, to comfort that child that you are at that moment identifying with, which is all of us, then that's what you need to, you know, if the child's really needing it and digging its heels in, you can't just, you know, gag it. That's not going to work, you know. And it's very unkind, you know. So you want to treat that child the way Jesus treats us in the Course, which is with kindness, which is with compassion and tolerance and gentleness and a sweet smile, you know. So
yeah, throwing the unwanted thoughts into the dungeon in our mind is not necessarily a very viable solution. So
right,
we need to bring them out to the light, see them, and say, okay, how do we reintegrate this? How do we, you know, see what this is pointing to, and you know, go beyond the metaphor back to the mind, and use everything that comes up as our classroom.
Exactly. Yeah. So we can probably conclude right now. There's one paragraph from the second part of the workbook that might be a nice closing. Would that be okay?
Sure.
Okay. Because it talks about our grandeur, and I thought that might be, I think it's lesson 224.
Okay.
Which I had marked, but then I lost it. Okay. And I'm only going to read the first paragraph of this, but it's, God is my Father and He loves His Son. So this is level 1 again. This is our grandeur. You know, this is what we've traded grandiosity for, and we're now what we long for to awaken to so deeply, but what we're now, you know, we're out of touch with and also afraid of.
We think we messed it up.
Yeah, but we're learning less afraid, learning that this is really all we want.
Right.
So my true identity is so secure, so lofty, sinless, glorious, and great, beneficent, and free from guilt, that heaven looks to it to give it light. It lights the world as well. It is the gift my Father gave to me, the one as well I give the world. There is no gift but this that can be either given or received. This is reality, and only this. This is illusion's end. It is the truth. And we can end with that.
That's it. Yeah. Do you want to mention the updates from the Temecula folks?
I'll mention it again. I mentioned it at the beginning. There, if you're interested in the wonderful streamed classes of the Foundation for A Course in Miracles, the February one is a 2-day, and it's the deadline for registering for that is coming up on February. What did I say? Find it again.
3rd, I think it was.
Wednesday, February 3rd. So if you're, and there's also 2 new releases of CDs of Ken Wapnick workshops that are also available at the Foundation's on their website if you go to the bookstore and click on new releases. So for information on either of those, go to facim.org, and for the streaming information on the class that I mentioned called The Past is Over, It Can Touch Me Not, click on Temecula schedule.
Yes, they're wonderful too. I can personally attest to
They're amazing.
They're really superb. And then I was just going to mention again the Weekend of Freedom Retreat. It's this 5th annual event that's happening this year in Estes Park, June 16th through the 19th. It's a 4-day retreat, and lots of fun things happening with that. And the literally brand new website is weekendoffreedomretreat.org, all one word, and I'll keep folks appraised of updates on that through ACIM blog as well, and Facebook and so forth. But I just wanted people to know if they have any interest at all. It should be a lot of fun, and if you're in the Colorado area in June, you might want to take advantage of it. So, or know somebody who is. So anyway, thanks again, Susan. We were talking about Grandeur versus Grandiosity from chapter 9, and look forward to our next conversation.
You too. Thanks, Bruce.